Good morning, Sonny.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Haas.
Hello.
I invited Justin to come up here. Justin is going to be from Gravity Bridge. They'll be joining us also today. So yeah, we're going to try a new format out. Hopefully next week, Sonny can take a week off of doing this, and we'll have another developer up, and we'll have a different admin come up and do some community updates along with new chain features, and try to keep this like rotating updates. So without further ado, Sonny, you want to start us off with some Osmosis updates?
Hey, yeah, sure. Cool. So, osmosis updates. Let's see. Uh, well, let's go with the easy stuff first. I think some of the stuff we're working on our CW20 IBC. We were working with Ethan Fry sort of a bunch last week to get that shipped, and it's basically good to go. And we're just getting integrated into our front end right now. And so that's so that way I'm sure a lot of people got their NETA airdrops yesterday, and I'm really excited about that. So yeah, so we'll be able to create NETA pools on Osmosis very soon, within like a day, within the next day or so. Um, and so that'll be cool because that'll be the first like sort of CW20 token that was built on another chain that we're going to be able to bring over onto Osmosis. On top of that, there was a couple other airdrops. The Sommelier one happened directly on Osmosis, which is really nice and convenient. No, don't even have to switch chains. It just pops up right in your Osmosis wallet, which is a nice, easy thing. I know Coney, what Daddy was saying, like, all airdrops should start doing that, which is definitely nice. Yeah, I guess otherwise on chain development, things are going quite well. It is February, so it is super fluid month. That means, hopefully, and so yeah, that's going pretty well. And on the front end, there's a lot of different things going on as well, where we are. So I mentioned, if the front end is going through this sort of like larger refactor right now, where it's going to make it sort of just cleaning up a lot of technical debt. But both the front end and Kepler are both going through this like refactors to clean up a bunch of technical debt and make it more modular, and easy to use. And so the modularity will enable like us to plug in like other things more easily. So, for example, being able to do direct deposits from like non-Cosmos chains, or being able to like pop up UI, pop like when you click a deposit or withdrawal, it will open up the bridge UI of a different app, right? And so this is sort of like how we need to do this for like injective, for example. So that's sort of been like the only thing that's like holding us back on like being able to display injective onto the front end, is so that we can make that UX work properly. The I guess what are some other updates? The LBP 2.0, that front end is so that the code base for LBP 2.0 is coming to is basically almost done. There's just a little bit of tests left, and then we are working on just there's a lot of front end work that we have left to do right now. There's a lot of super fluid stuff and lending stuff, and so the LBP 2.0, we're working with an external contractor to build a front end for it. And they're someone who's worked on some cool stuff. They built like the front end for NFTX, which is cool because they have experience building front ends for interesting new market types, right? And so the LBP 2.0 design. By the way, we need a better name than LBP 2.0 because it's not even really an LBP anymore. So if anyone has any suggestions for a good name for it, it's sort of like more like a streaming continuous auction. And so we've come up with a cool name for it. So anyone has any suggestions, feel free to throw them somewhere. I don't know, Twitter, Telegram. Yeah, so that's basically most of it. I think. Oh, on the data side, the dashboard is coming along pretty well. I saw some mock-ups for it, so it's looking pretty good. Yeah, I think that. Oh, I guess one cool fun thing that's exciting is we're working with I'm in Berkeley right now for the next like couple of weeks. We're working with some students at Blockchain at Berkeley to like design. We're calling it a volatility AMM. What that means is AMM does, when we started working on Osmosis, one of the things we wanted to work on was like novel AMM designs. And that's just sort of something we haven't had too much time to like work on directly just because we've been working on so many other things. But, working with these students, we're working on designing a new type of AMM that reacts to market conditions. So currently, to think about what it's doing, right? Like, what do market makers do in like normal real market makers on like order book exchanges? Well, if like the market is moving in a certain direction, it's like having a general market crash or something, market makers will go ahead and basically, you know, rug their liquidity, right? You remove your liquidity and you increase the spreads. Um, but AMMs right now are very dumb, right? They're just this like simple algorithm that's x times y equals k, and they don't do that at all. And so that's not sort of the right way of you know our belief is that market makers AMMs can be smarter, right? So these traditional market makers are just using algorithms to do their market making. Why can't we use ideas from those algorithms to make AMMs smarter as well? So I think the simple solution is we just need to have like some sort of input of volatility into the AMM, so we can say like, hey, look, okay, if over the last 5-minute period there's been a net movement of price in a certain direction, then what you want to do is slowly remove some of the liquidity and like keep it in reserves outside of the AMM pool, and that way it will reduce the impermanence loss of the LP. So people talk about like this impermanence loss mitigation or resistance and all this kind of stuff. And usually they're talking about like, oh, we're just gonna subsidize it by like giving away native tokens. This is sort of what like impermanence loss mitigation means in like things like Bancor and Thorchain and stuff. Um, but Thorchain does do something where they actually increase the fees based off of the size of a trade, but that doesn't really work because you would just split up your trade into many small trades and you don't end up having to pay a lot of fees. So I think they were like sort of on to the right idea, but there's some like design stuff that needs to be fixed in order to make it um, correctly usable. So yeah, this is like sort of a design. So I think we're working on this new type of AMM that can react to volatility, and so I think that should be an interesting, you know, research and design and product project. And so we'll keep people up to date on like new developments and learnings from this like research process. Yeah, that's I think the main things. And then so then I guess obviously the big thing we should talk about as well is the bridges. So last week there was I guess two main controversies that I kind of got dragged into. One was maybe a little bit my fault, but the whole naming thing with Cosmos, and I was just maybe a little bit. Maybe that wasn't the most effective way of going about it. I think one thing I learned from last week is what I need to like stop making Twitter threads on things and just like writing better long form posts. And I think like Twitter is maybe not the best place to explain nuanced topics. So we'll be doing. I'll try to do more not long form posts. But so on the bridge side of things, we actually. Oh, sorry, Eddie, you wanted to say something?
Oh no, I was just like, yeah, throw less grenades in the chicken coop, please.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the on the bridge side of things, what we actually did was we ended up writing a long post. So, well, effectively, what happened, I can give a little bit of timeline, is that, you know, the SIP chain team. So, SIP chain is another DEX, also built on Cosmos, and they have their own bridge that they use called Peggy. And what happens actually is, like, it seems like most of the DEXs being built, they've also been sort of like building and maintaining their own custom bridges, right? So if you look at Injective, they have their own version of the Gravity Bridge software that they're like running a bridge on. If you look at Thorchain, they have their own Bifrost protocol. If you look at SIFchain, they have their own Peggy Bridge software. And it seems that most dexes also try to build their own bridges. When we started working on Osmosis, we made the explicit decision that was like, hey, you know what, we're just gonna focus on, we're just gonna integrate IBC, and we're not gonna try to integrate all the different bridges, or build out all the different bridges ourselves, because we just want to spend our time. And I guess we kind of saw what happened with Thorchain as well, where it's like, when you get spread too thin a little bit, it's hard. Bridges is a lot of work and it's hard, right? And so, like, we want to just be like, okay, we want to just focus on our DEX and DeFi work, and then we can sort of like outsource bridges to other teams. And then part of it was we wanted to make sure whichever bridges we're working with are, like, you know quote unquote credibly neutral. I know I feel that's a term that you know, there's a lot of confusion about within the space of what that means. And I can talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, so basically, SIFchain basically made a proposal to add, make an incentivized pool for Rowan, SIF ETH, which is the term when used to describe like ETH coming over the SIFchain bridge. And we were just a little bit, um it just took us a little bit by surprise, because there was no like communication with us about that, like, hey, that this was going to we were talking about like making a pools for like Rowan, and which that was a normal process. And we'd actually been working with like SIFchain to get their pools on for like a couple of months now. There was all just some issues around, we had to wait till IBC 2.0 because of the size of their token. So most tokens in Cosmos use 10 to the 6 as, like, as the denomination. Rowan SIFchain used 10 to the 18 for Rowan, which is fine. And there was like sort of a bug in the first version of IBC that didn't allow that to go over IBC, and that was like not on them. That was like an IBC issue, and so we were waiting for the IBC fix for that, and that happened, and so we finally were able to do that. And yeah, so we were just taken a little bit by surprise on that, and I guess that part of this is like this is an assumption and design choice that we, as the development teams, had like very internally for a long time. But I guess maybe we did not share this explicitly, like, to the public, and so that maybe is a little bit on us as well. But our general design goals here were like, we want to make sure, we our goal is to provide the best user experience to users, right? And you know eventually compete with centralized exchanges. And if you go on a centralized exchange, you have one ETH there, right? There's no like 10 different types of ETH and like confusing users. Meanwhile, if I feel this is like just an issue that we haven't solved very well in like DeFi yet, where you have these like all these prefixes. And like, so if you look at something like Solana, so in the post I put this screenshot of the UI from Saber, which is a DEX on Solana, and they have like they're a stable swap DEX on Solana, so they're not the problem, right? They're trying to solve the problem, which is the problem is that there's 10 different types of USDC on Solana coming from all different bridges, and they are how do they differentiate and show it they usually add these like prefixes to each of them, and that's like it just looks like this cacophony of like prefixes, and you can't really see what it's very confusing. And there's other ways of doing it. Maybe prefixes is not the right way. Maybe you have like you say, oh, SIF chain ETH, gravity ETH, axelar ETH, right? But even that, I think, is like the fact that there's so many different types is just not the UX we want to show users. It's confusing. And on top of that, not just from the UX side, from the like the UI visuals, but it also has impacts on like the liquidity itself, right? Where if you have like multiple types of the same asset and you have like a bunch of different pools for them, you end up splitting your liquidity across all of these different pools. And, given how AMMs work, especially, the very primitive ones we have today, until, maybe Vol Swap fixes this. But, at least with the primitive AMMs we have today, the splitting your liquidity means that your slippage on each pool goes higher, which just generally just decreases the UX for everyone, right? Because everyone's going to be getting worse trades. And so at the same time, I think what's the sort of events from last week on with regard to that did help show is like, hey, SIFchain has a point that maybe that it's not really fair for us as the dev team to be making this decision on behalf of the entire community, right? Like, what we shouldn't be the ones that like single-handedly say, hey, this bridge. Oh, sorry. We were saying that, like, so going back for a second, right? So our view is like, hey, we think that there should be a single bridge that Osmosis as a chain uses, right? And treat them as a sort of service provider. And it. So there was like all these like so now with the credible neutrality thing, right? People were like saying like, hey, isn't that like not very credibly neutral? And kind of saying like, hey, the Osmosis team was this one that always has been stressing this idea of credible neutrality. This doesn't make sense. Um, and so that we in the post we also wanted to clarify like what credible neutrality is it is it's it applies on the relationship from a platform or service provider or application to its users and customers. It doesn't apply from a user to their service provider, right? So, I gave oracles as an example in the post where a credibly neutral oracle provider would be one that like provides pricing data openly, like it does not discriminate, right, to who it provides oracle data. It provides fair oracle data to any protocol that wants to integrate with it as a service. But now it would not be non-credibly neutral in order for a lending protocol, for example, to say, hey, we are going to pick this service provider, we're going to pick to integrate with Chainlink. And it would not be like saying, it would not be like, oh, by integrating with Chainlink and not with Band Protocol or Pith or any of these other, that would not be not credibly neutral. It would be silly to expect a application to have to integrate with every possible Oracle provider, especially because that, for one, carries like security risk, but also it would it just does not make sense, right? So, that's sort of and so basically the relationship between Osmosis as a DEX application, I think it should see the bridges as service providers, right? It's an application, and the bridge is a service provider that gives its connection to other chains, right? It's the same as an exchange would pick a custodian as a service provider. Here, the Osmosis DEX is basically hiring a custodian to take custody of ETH assets and being able to issue them on Osmosis. So yeah, so that's sort of why our view on like, hey, there should be this like single service provider that the chain hires, and it can change that service provider over time, maybe as maybe a new service provider comes around that is just so much better than the previous ones, right? So it should be able to do that. Obviously, there's a lot of technical and engineering work to figure out how migrations happen, but it should be possible. But yeah, so then, okay, so now going back to what I was saying about how do you pick which service providers to use? I think it makes sense that us as the chain development teams, we shouldn't be the ones who are single-handedly making that decision for the entire community, right? That's not in line with the spirit of decentralization. And so I think what makes sense is that we should come up as a community with a process for different service providers who want to be the primary, let's say the primary bridge to Ethereum mainnet, right? We should have a process where different service providers can sort of submit proposals to say hey, here's our here's all the benefits of our bridging solution. And we have to consider these things based off of a bunch of different categories, right? And so once all these providers submit these proposals, and maybe someone can create I don't know, a summary with a pro-con list of each of the bridging solutions, and then we should be taking into account the different categories, right? Things like cost, security, decentralization of the bridge, UX of the bridge, network effects, right? Who else is going to be using that bridge? So all these there's a bunch of different categories. I think that I listed out some more in the post, but yeah, so we should create some sort of pro-con list of them, and then have some sort of vote to decide, hey, okay, we want to spend our development efforts integrating with this service provider as a primary bridge, as well as focus incentives on the pairs with that bridge's assets, so that way if it's bridge A, all the Osmo liquidity incentives will be focused on bridge A's version of ETH, bridge A's version of USDC, and so on. So yeah, I think that hopefully helps provide some context. And so I guess from here, Justin. Well, okay, I don't know. Eddie, you want to add anything here?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say this all makes a lot of sense. We want to make the DeFi space easier for people to adapt to and less complicated.
Yeah.
Educating the community and allowing them to make the choice seems like the right move to me. But this is a good segue for Justin. Justin from Gravity Bridge is here.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. So, yeah, let's see. I guess there's a little bit of something that's just been on my mind while you've been speaking, Sunny, particularly about sort of the space that Cosmos bridges are in. So there were really there were roughly four, and don't quote me precisely on any of this because there's a lot going on in the Cosmos ecosystem. But there are roughly four bridge implementations that I know about. There is Secret, Thorchain, Chain, and then Gravity and its various forms. And so there's really been sort of a Cambrian explosion in the number of chains with bridges since Gravity came out. Because when I first made the Gravity design and Althea started developing it, we were working on making the best and the simplest bridge possible. And a bridge is an independent product rather than a bridge as part of a DEX or part of a larger chain ecosystem. And it's become really clear that this is generally useful and something that everybody in the Cosmos ecosystem is using now. Because if I go about listing all of the, I think you listed several chains using variants of Gravity Bridge already, and I could go on, and I'm sure the list isn't exhaustive. So I think that's just sort of an interesting point, is that there are definitely a lot of different potential service providers and different users of the same core Gravity Bridge code. But when we created Gravity Bridge, we did so with the idea of sort of aggregating traffic. And this is baked into the design at the fundamental level, is that if we make a neutral bridge and sort of commit to the idea of Cosmos DeFi, instead of saying like, oh, you know, we're going to have our own DeFi platform, we're going to have our own bridge, we're going to be our own destination. So even if Cosmos DeFi doesn't succeed, we'll be okay. And that's what a lot of these other chains are doing. They're hedging their bets. And Gravity Bridge as a chain is more committed. We are 100% all in on Cosmos DeFi and the Cosmos ecosystem. And, you know, the market hasn't spoken one way or the other. They may turn out to be right. But that's sort of the bet that's being made. Now, the advantage of making this bet is that Gravity Bridge gets cheaper to use the more people use it, pretty dramatically too. So, for example here, the cost of sending a token back to Ethereum. So we batch transactions going back to Ethereum, so you can sort of put your token in the pool and wait for it to get picked up. And the great thing about this is that it costs a base price. Now, quoting gas prices in dollars is kind of a fool's game. So let's say it costs $200 to execute a batch. Well, this is a batch of just one transaction, so it's the absolute base fee. By the time you get up to 100 transactions, the batch only costs 4 times more, bringing the fee per individual transaction down below the Ethereum base fee. So you're sending an ERC20 transfer back to Ethereum for lower than the cost of a base ETH transfer. So if you do a lot of ERC20 transfers, you know they're significantly more expensive than a base Ethereum transfer because there's a little bit of contract logic involved. So that's a pretty incredible feat. And what this requires is that we have to get the traffic all in one place and really develop that relayer ecosystem between Gravity Bridge and Ethereum so that we can reap these incredible sort of economies of scale that you can get the more operations you do through a single bridge, as well as much faster throughput. I mean, imagine being able to get from a bridge back to Ethereum in a matter of a 10-minute wait and a fee of $5 instead of a fee of $50, or even worse, actually. So this is really sort of the potential of a neutral bridge, and the idea that the Cosmos DeFi ecosystem, through using one bridge, can achieve these enormous economies of scale. So that's really the design idea behind Gravity Bridge and what we hope to achieve by remaining a neutral bridge without any direct DeFi functionality on Gravity Bridge itself. So yeah, I think that's a good introductory summary. And I'm interested in questions and sort of what y'all are interested in hearing.
Hello?
Lakita.
Hi. It's Lakita from Italy. Hi to everyone.
Hello.
Happy New Year. Can you hear me right? Like,
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Cool. Okay. Justin, I wanted to. Hi, Sunny. I wanted to ask you something to you too, but Justin, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. So if I understand correctly what you said, so you are taking care of the Gravity Bridge, right? You are Althea. So you are connecting Ethereum to the Cosmo network. Is it correct?
Yes, I'm a developer on the Gravity Bridge. Obviously, the community is actually running the bridge.
Yes. So we are talking bridge between Ethereum and Cosmos, but also other chain, not only Ethereum, right?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a two-sided bridge. Gravity Bridge operates a bridge between Ethereum and itself. And then from there, tokens are moved over IBC to any other Cosmos chain that is supporting IBC.
Sorry, you cut exactly when you said, can you say it again? Ethereum bridge, and then you cut. Can you say it again?
Yeah, so Gravity Bridge is an Ethereum bridge that brings tokens over to the Gravity Bridge blockchain. And then from there, tokens can go over IBC to any Cosmos chain that supports it.
Yes. All right. But so, if I understand correct, you said that you were the first one developing this bridge, but then a lot of other bridge came out, right?
Yeah, so I did the original design of Gravity Bridge along with Althea's other co-founder, Jahan. And we have worked on the original implementation, and community members have come along, they've contributed, they have forked away, they have come back and taken more. It's very difficult to describe the state of all of these forks at this point, because it's not a straight graph. You know, there's a lot of loops in there. But long story short, everything is derived from that original design.
If of course, I mean, if it's open source and everybody can work on it, why now it's the other way around? Should be that the best one has the role to do it, not the first one. This is my opinion. Thank you. I mean, can I ask? I wait your answer. Hello?
I'm afraid I didn't understand your statement. The best one, and what was before that?
Don't you think that we are talking about why there must be only one bridge in the beginning?
I think Sonny was going over that earlier with the UX issues, that it overcomplicates it for new users, especially.
Yeah, I think it's important to have one just for UX and liquidity reasons. And I think that, the Althea team has, I guess the most familiarity with the code base, right? Given that they were the ones that sort of wrote it in the first place, right? And so that's sort of.
So what's the point to be an open source code that everybody can look at it, maybe even make it better, and we have to point to the best one, not the first one.
Right. Now
you understand what I said. Okay.
Yes. So okay. We completely agree. That's why why we're suggesting that we should have a process where each of these bridges sort of submits a proposal that they
yes.
This
is what I wanted to ask you, Sunny. What kind of parameters do you think all those different providers that compete to each other? What kind of parameter they offer? What kind of choice you can make between those different internet providers? No, sorry, internet provider. We said sorry, provider.
Right. Yeah. So I think there's I mentioned a couple, but I think just to reiterate, features could include things like cost of using the bridge. Could include things like features. So features is a big broad one, but features includes one I think is the number of chains that they connect to, right? So I think currently the biggest focus is getting the Ethereum bridge going, but obviously there's the software for connecting Ethereum to Cosmos can be reused to connect to many EVM chains, right? So the number of EVM chains that is live is just growing crazy. We have BSC and Phantom and Avalanche and Polygon, and that's only layer ones, right? Not even get into layer twos. So how many chains that these bridge solutions connect us to? Another one would be also on the feature side, can they do things other than token transfers, right? So token transfers are great and probably where most of the initial value would be, but we also want to be able to do things like NFTs, right? We want to be able to get NFTs over between from going between Ethereum and Cosmos, or interchain accounts, right? So one of the things that we've wanted for a long time has been that I think I've talked about this before, but we want the official Osmosis front end to be owned by the DAO, right? Where on a Koch network, where it's able to basically make proposals to upgrade the front end. But what about the domain name, right? So I think the best domain name service right now is probably ENS, right? So we want the Osmosis DAO to be able to own an ENS name on Ethereum, and it can point that to the deployment. So that's there's different types of things that we want to be able to do over the bridge.
So you are bonding a lot with Ethereum, or this is gonna happen the idea is to go to bond like this with the Polkadot, or Ethereum is the favorite one.
It's no, the goal is to connect to all of these things. Ethereum is just the one that is sort of ready, and a lot of people were working on all at the same time, just because there's a lot of high value in connecting to EVM compatible chains, because that's still at the moment where a lot of value is built.
Sorry, I have another question because I have no more battery on my phone. So,
Okay.
but
No worries.
this update from the lab is weekly, right?
Sorry, one more time.
Is it weekly? Is it weekly? This
Yes,
update
yes.
from the lab today is okay. Perfect. No, but sorry, Sandy. Last question. This bridge, as I understand, when you pass between Ethereum and Cosmos, one way and going back and forth, you pay fees, no? You pay fees.
Correct.
Yes, but so from the so we know that Ethereum now is like a crazy fees.
Yes.
Right. When this bridge is gonna happen, those fees are gonna go down. Or what is gonna happen on those fees?
Well,
Quickly. No, not because I have no budget. Tell me.
Well, it depends on how many people come. I don't think the existence of this bridge and is going to cause, at least yet, enough people to move off of mainnet Ethereum to cause the fees to go down significantly. But the point is that to go off of Ethereum and into Cosmos land, you should only have to pay that fee the first time, right? When you to make the transaction.
When you enter, yes.
Exactly, and so you can avoid the fees after that. And this is also why it's important.
So when you go the other way from Cosmos to Ethereum,
then you will have to pay a fee to compensate the validators for the Ethereum fee that they will use. But this is what Justin was talking.
it's I the Cosmos Ethereum fee as well.
You have to pay the Ethereum gas fee.
Yes,
but
these I fees are based on what? So this provider, only provider, not many, only one, is not neutral at all because it controls a bridge between Ethereum and Cosmos. Only one bridge between these two giants.
So you're suggesting that there might be some sort of price gouging at some point?
No, it's see you next time. Thank you so much. Bye.
Okay. Thank you. Cool. Who else? I think Jeff was up next.
Yeah. Hi. So I just wanted to ask regarding if you have any updates for this bridge called Centauri. It's basically this composable finance that made this thing to connect like the Polkadot and Kusama network to Cosmos. So,
yeah.
Do you have any information?
I've been in touch with them for a while. I haven't I haven't looked at their code or anything, but I know they've been sort of building this IBC crate for a substrate. So we'll be able to connect to a bunch of different substrate chains using the code that they've done. So I'm just generally quite excited for that, and I think it will be pretty good. I don't think it's at the spot yet where it's like ready to integrate. At least I don't think it is. But once it is, I think we'll have like a similar sort of thing where we'll have to get like proposals. I think there's a couple other projects also building like substrate IBC things. Like I think there's one called there's one from the Octopus Network folks. They're also building something similar. So I think once these things become a little bit more production ready, we're going to have a similar process for evaluating them.
Okay, nice. Sounds good.
Cool.
Hi, Sunny.
Hey.
My question is around Gravity Bridge, and obviously it's going to have that Ethereum connectivity. How will it compare to SIFChain's Omni EVM that is coming out in a month or two? And is it going to have that future ability, or is it just going to be around importing ERC20 tokens?
Justin, you want to take this?
Yeah, so Gravity Bridge is just focused on moving ERC20 tokens back and forth efficiently. Could you clarify a little bit more what you mean by future ability? Because I believe you would mean futures for Ethereum assets issued in the issued in their exchange, but I'm not completely sure. So I just want to nail
So
that
his
down.
question was, I think, it was primarily around, what is Gravity Bridge's plans for connecting to more EVM chains?
That's right.
That's a very different interpretation. Okay. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Cool. So right now, we are starting. We are starting with base Ethereum and working on that. But eventually, I would hope that we can develop support for going to and from many different EVM chains simultaneously. Because right now we have sort of a one-to-one bridge, so it's Gravity Bridge to Ethereum, and then a one-to-many bridge, which is IBC. So we could have a one-to-many bridge on the Gravity side as well, and go anywhere, not only anywhere that has a native EVM, but anywhere that just has an EVM compatibility layer. So yeah, there are a lot of different targets, like Sunny was talking about before. And that is not yet in progress, but it's being considered for the future. Most of the work there is in how to make sure that it's easy to run a one-to-many bridge, because there's a lot of logistics issues around that. But I'm confident that we can overcome them.
Thank you.
What do you think, like, the timeline for that would be look like?
That really depends on the community's priorities and also sort of how EVM chains evolved. I think that if we were to go with a rough timeline of a year or so, we could end up with support for arbitrary numbers of EVM chains. But we could do something on a much shorter timeline if we're like, okay, we're just going to add a Binance bridge. There will be only two, instead of support for going for 5, 10, 15, 100 right out the gate. And we're still at the phase where the community needs to make that decision and sort of see how they feel about those two options and timelines.
Okay, cool. Because I know there's definitely been a lot of demand from other Cosmos projects as well for assets from Polygon and things like that.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, I got a
Yeah. So I
how about King Crypto goes first? I think he was here first.
okay. Hi. Actually, I want to ask specifically about CRO. Currently, you're already supporting the IBC for CRO. Do you is Osmosis is able to support Chronos directly, considering that Chronos is also part of the IBC?
Yes. So currently we support the Crow coming from crypto.org chain. And so how Crow gets to Chronos in the first place is it's minted on crypto.org chain, and then it's IBC'd to Chronos. So currently, I guess you're right, this kind of relates similarly to our bridge discussion where, we don't want to have two different types of Crow on Osmosis, one that's coming from Chronos, one that's coming from crypto.org. So that's why we actually want to go ahead and, we only want to, for now, we're just going to support the Crow coming from crypto.org. And eventually what we'd want to do is similar to how centralized exchanges give you the option to withdraw assets to different chains. If you go on something like Binance and you want to withdraw USDT, it gives you options, right? It's like, oh, do you want to withdraw to Ethereum or to the legacy Bitcoin one, or to the Tron version, or what type of USDT do you want? And so I think that's what we would want to get to as well, where it's like, okay, you want to withdraw Crow, do you want to withdraw to crypto.org chain, or do you want to withdraw to Chronos? And so that's sort of what we would get towards. But then just in general, I think we are definitely working on getting that IBC connection going to Chronos for other reasons as well, right? There's a lot of DeFi stuff happening on Chronos, and there's new assets being built on Chronos. So they have they have this they have a DEX protocol. Blanking on the name right now, and then they have a lending protocol called kind of confusingly, it's called Tectonic, which I hope doesn't get confusing with our lending protocol called Isotonic. I promise the names were come up with completely independently, but But yeah, so there's a big DeFi ecosystem sort of building on Chronos right now, and so we definitely want to build up that IBC connection to Chronos, so we can tap into the ecosystem being built there.
I think, in my opinion, Chronos Osmosis connectivity would be a nice test ground for an EVM Osmosis connectivity before we're going for Gravity, because Gravity is, we don't see the form yet. Chronos is already there. The channel is there, everything is there. So yeah, I would strongly recommend Osmosis to adopt Chronos withdrawal.
Yeah, like I said, it's definitely in our plan. Same with Evmos as well. Evmos is the other big EVM Cosmos chain that's being deployed. But it's worth noting that these are very independent from the bridge question. Yes. So Evmos and Chronos are like two examples of EVM chains, new EVM chains being built on the Cosmos SDK, and they're both IBC compatible, which is great because we can have this direct connection and we don't have to do bridges or anything like that. But that doesn't solve the problem of the fact that, hey, we want ETH on Osmosis, right? Because Chronos does not, it doesn't have native ETH on it, right? And so that's, I think these are sort of orthogonal concerns that we want to be tackling both of them. But yeah, just in general, big fan of the crypto.org.
No, we don't need
team,
to
because,
support the 20 tokens. The most important thing is the native coin itself. The native token is understandable, but the native coin is the one we really need on Osmosis withdrawal.
Right. Yeah, yeah. So like I said, we're gonna work on getting native withdrawals of Crow as well. Yeah, just in general, about Crypto.com, I just want to say, I'm just such a big fan of what they've been doing, just because there's a lot of centralized exchanges that take the Cosmos technology and sort of run with it and don't contribute back, aren't good open source contributors, right? Binance is obviously the big one, but OKX, and there's a lot of teams that use Cosmos SDK but just don't contribute back. Crypto.com has just been a good ecosystem participant, right? They've been constantly for years contributing back to the Cosmos SDK. They've been using IBC in all their products, but even to go between crypto.org chain and Chronos, they use IBC. And they on Chronos, they built a system to convert their ERC20 tokens into native coins so that they can go over IBC. And they've, along with the Evmos team, they've contributed very heavily to the Ethermint code base. And yeah, so just very happy to see that there's there's these at least one centralized exchange that is a good open source participant. Okay, cool. Let's see. Who else? Who is next? Financier.
Hi there. I got a quick question on.
Go ahead.
When Osmosis continue to develop, there are more and more decisions that the community will need to make. And now we all know that the incentives and the parameters of the chains is being decided by the validators as well as the delegators. But going forward, once we are connected to the Gravity bridge, and as you mentioned that the front end, say for example the ENS can all be decided by the DAO. But what do you think, or what the future of that decision making process is going to be like? What decision? Because we can't rely on, say for example, the community to constantly making decisions every single day when there are too many for them to make. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I guess so one, I think our front end is sort of just not at the point, the engine. There's a lot of more engineering needed to get our front end to the point where we would be comfortable, handing it off, because you're right. Once it gets handed off to the DAO, it becomes much slower to make changes, right? Just from the fact that we have a 3-day voting period, versus on a centralized fund, you can just push immediately. So because of that, we want to make sure that hey, we want to get to a point where we think our front end is a little bit more stable, and it doesn't have we're more okay with this idea of having slower deployments. And so and I completely agree with you. We need to figure out what's the way of governance in the Cosmos SDK just needs to become way better, right? Because currently it consists of like everyone voting on everything, and that's maybe not the right way. We need to be able to better segment of like, hey, who, people should be, we shouldn't have all the incentive proposals mixed in with all the front end upgrade proposals mixed in with all the big major strategic decisions, right? Because sometimes then the big major strategic decisions get lost in the noise. And so this is sort of just something that we have to be aware of to make the governance processes better. I think that's a good point. And also, like I said, it's also worth noting that like even once the DAO has its own front end deployment, that doesn't stop anyone else from having their own front end deployments, right? There's one thing that's worth noting is that like there's already multiple front ends for Osmosis, right? There's not just the app.osmosis.zone front end. There's a significant part of Osmosis volumes currently comes today from the Cosmos Station mobile wallet, right? And they've built sort of their own custom integrations into the Osmosis protocol. But then there's also a number of other front ends, such as Rango Exchange and Ping.pub and Citadel One. And also all the Osmosis code is open source, so anyone can go ahead and run a copy of, run it and integrate, make whatever modifications that they want. So I think it'll probably realistically still be a couple of months before the app.osmosis.zone front end is to a technical point and stable enough that I think it's can be run by a DAO and have slower iteration speeds. But we don't want to get it too slow. Cool. Financier.
KYC is anti-DeFi. Thank you.
I agree. Thank you.
So I have a few things for the support lab.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so guys, this is Haas. Some of you may know me as I'm an administrator for Osmosis Telegram chat. You also may have crossed paths with me throughout the various IBC Telegram channels. So some of these things may seem brief and explanatory, but some things that we run into for crypto security, please never give out your seed phrase. If you're confused, concerned, or anything like that, you can also look up any project on CoinGecko to get the official URLs. And as for seed phrases themselves, never store them on your phone or, in fact, any electronic device. It's always better to be safe than sorry. Just do it old school. Write it down on a piece of paper. And remember, when you're on Discord or Telegram, we're never going to DM you. There's no one that's going to DM you and ask you for anything. So if you get a DM, just ignore it, block it. Things you may want to do, you might want to download like malware bytes and have it scan your computer periodically. And then as for the support lab, we're asking for another round of funding to support our ongoing initiatives, which officially began back on November 1st as a result of Prop 57 passing. And right now you can go on our Commonwealth and there's live discussions on it. And if you can, provide any positive feedback or negative feedback or whatever sort of feedback that you have. And another update is we are nearing our launch of our dedicated support chat system that should be integrated in our support website, which will be made available via a link right throughout the Osmosis UI. The estimated timetable on that is towards the end of the month. And I have a question actually that came up from one of our administrators. It could be answered by, I guess, either Sonny or Justin. They wanted to know the pros and cons of Axler and Gravity and what they both can do for Osmosis.
So I can talk a little bit about the two. And maybe Justin can also add some of his feedback as well. I don't know. I mean, I tried out the Axelar demo this weekend, or last week, and it was honestly really nice. You know, I thought they currently support going between the Cosmos SDK and EVM chains, right? So you can well, currently their MVP, you know, they support sending UST and Luna from Terra onto other so they've already integrated into a number of EVM chains such as Ethereum, Polygon, Phantom, but a couple others. And so yeah, so I think that the UX is actually really quite smooth. And I think they do a couple of things that are so okay, let me think. They have a couple of UX features that I actually really liked as well. So, which is, they have this idea called like direct deposit. They have like what do you call it? Address deposits or something, where there's just like UX that I really like in, centralized exchanges, right? You go and when you like want to deposit ETH or something, right? It doesn't pop up your MetaMask and like tell you to deposit. What it does is it gives you an address that you can send tokens to, and it just associates that with your account. And so, there's like two types of wallets that exist today, right? There's what I call smart wallets and dumb wallets. Smart wallets are like what your browser extension wallet is which, your app that you're using can tell it a transaction to do. So this is something what like Kepler would be, or MetaMask, or whether you're using, or even a mobile wallet that you're using with Wallet Connect. But there's also like dumb wallets, and I actually don't have the number. I think this would be a good research thing to do. Is like what percentage of assets are people are using dumb wallets, and dumb wallets I mean are things that just know how to send, right? I know how to send coins back and forth. And, for example, most Bitcoin wallets are dumb wallets. There's no Bitcoin browser extension wallet. And so what's nice about Axelar's address deposit system is that they allow you to deposit using a dumb wallet, where I can have a Ethereum wallet on my phone that is Trust Wallet or something, and it doesn't use I don't want to use Wallet Connect, but when I want to deposit to Osmosis, it'll just pop up a QR code for me to send money to, and what it does is it generates a new address for each action, and when I send coins to that address, it will go ahead and deposit them, associate them with my account and deposit them immediately into my Osmosis account. And I think that's like a very cool UX flow that is really interesting. Yeah, I think that those are some of the cool things that I've seen in Axelar so far. Justin, I don't know if you want to give any like thoughts on comparisons that you guys, how you guys see Axelar comparing with like the Gravity solutions. Oh, Justin disappeared. Oh, there he is. Hello? Hey, Justin, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm sorry. My Twitter app keeps crashing. It's actually kind of impressive.
Oh, cool. So we were just talking about Axelar's versus the Gravity bridge, and so I'm wondering if I gave a little bit of a pitch on Axelar just because I used it recently.
Yeah, I did hear that.
Cool. So you want to talk a little bit about how you see some of the comparisons?
Yeah. So I mean, the thing that Axelar is doing is that in order to have address-based deposits, you kind of have to integrate the bridge with the exchange a little bit more tightly than like Gravity Bridge is going for. We're trying to be loosely coupled and allow many chains to use us and be very flexible when it comes to the integration. So what we're working on instead is we are integrating Osmosis IBC forwarding module so that you can deposit directly from Ethereum and reach your target chain in one step. Now, this still needs a smart wallet. You need to send a specific ERC20 transaction to the bridge, but it means that you only need to interact with Ethereum and then the destination chain. And this is neutral. Any provider can show up and use it. It's not custom and stuck to a particular DEX or a particular destination. So this means that you can go straight from Ethereum to the hub. You can go straight from Ethereum to Osmosis. You can go straight from Ethereum to Axelar if you like. And this is sort of one of the trade-offs we are making, being more loosely coupled. So we have this enormous flexibility, but we can't always achieve so like you can have more specific ease of use. So like Axelar's address-based deposits is very specifically, it's only useful for Axelar.
Well, you actually can deposit from, you can deposit straight to other chains as well. So what they do, I believe, is they send a transaction to the Axelar chain to associate an address with a destination address on a different chain. If that makes sense.
I think we lost them again.
Okay, sorry about that. I got kicked in and out. So where were we?
I was just saying I actually do. So I have to look at how it works. You know, the Axelar code base is not something I've really sort of looked at very closely. But when I tried their demo, they actually do support that, where like, you know, they do the multi-hop as well. They like, you know, you don't ever actually have to make a transaction on the Axelar chain.
So, but that means that how do they encode that as a dumb wallet transaction?
I think what they do is they make a transaction on Axelar, basically associating that address with the final destination address on the other, on, you know, the end chain. And basically when they generate that, then when you send to that address, the Axelar validators pick that up, and when they submit it to the Axelar chain, they also add the IBC destination. That's what I understand. I don't know. I feel like we have to, you know, probably talk with the Axelar team as well to like get.
Yeah, I didn't pick that up when I was looking over it, but maybe I missed how it was implemented.
Mm-hmm. So I, you know, in general, I think there's like a lot of, you know, I think we can. I think when we get like more proposals for, sort of from the projects, and like we'll be able to like do a more like educated pro-con analysis between them.
So Justin, I have another question. So this came from a community member. They wanted to know, obviously, when airdrop and the tokenomics of the Grav token, and what also essentially, I know you touched on it before, but if you can remind us what the exact purpose of the actual token is as well. Thank you.
Yeah, so I will answer your questions in reverse order. So for the actual purpose of the Grav token, there's obviously assets, well, not obviously, but there's assets locked in the bridge on the Ethereum side. So these are the actual ERC20s, and what you're trading on the Cosmos side through IBC are just representations that can be redeemed one for one for the actual thing. This, of course, depends on the bridge contract on Ethereum remaining secure and keeping your assets in the right place. So the Gravity Bridge token can be used to stake and help to secure the chain, and specifically secure the funds on the Ethereum side of the bridge. And there are specific obligations validators have to help with that. You can read more in the documentation, but essentially the premise is that the validators secure the assets. In exchange, they collect fees. And it's a pretty straightforward, tokenomics. Now, to go backwards, I think you're going to need to refresh me on the middle question, but the last question was when airdrop. So specifically for Gravity Bridge, we have implemented something called an airdrop proposal, which allows airdrops to be voted on by governance. So I would keep an eye on governance votes in the near future. And then you want, oh yes, the middle question was distribution. So about the distribution, that will be discussed a little bit more in some of these proposals. We have a large contingent. We had over 100 validators who helped start the chain, as well as many Cosmos community members involved in the launch. So we did a very decentralized, at-scale launch. And we really focused on making that excellent rather than communicating the details. So we're a little bit behind on that. So I expect that you'll start to see information about that very soon.
All right, thank you.
You mentioned.
Hey guys, so I have one last question for I don't want to steal too many questions, but what's the view from Osmosis really on kind of like fungibility of ERC20 tokens that are going to be getting imported into Cosmos across obviously Gravity Bridge and then potentially other bridges down the line?
Sorry, what was the question? I missed it.
In terms of fungibility, so obviously you're gonna get ERC20 tokens coming in via Gravity Bridge, and I think it's already been mentioned. There's maybe going to be other bridges. What's the view from Osmosis on the fungibility of these tokens between various avenues of import export?
Right. So I think the goal there is to, like I've been saying, we choose one that is sort of the canonical one and, focus liquidity there. So, let's say there's an ETH Osmo pair, we should choose one bridge and focus the liquidity on that. And then, let's say something like USDC, right? Let's say there's one canonical USDC that we brought from Ethereum and all the liquidity is focused there. But then what about USDC is, there's a native USDC on Solana, right? How do we, what if people want to bring in USDC from Solana? How do we deal with that? So I think that's where things like stable swaps will come into play. So, we'll have let's say we'll have a primary USDC, but then there's maybe a secondary USDCs that are also on the chain. And that way, from the UX, it should still just show up as USDC. But then let's say when you want to withdraw to Solana, what it will do is it will, on the stable swap, it will swap to a Solana version of USDC and then send it, withdraw it over something like, I don't know, Wormhole or something to Solana. And so I think that's sort of, stable swaps. I think the Civ Chain folks call these like token fungibility groups. And I think there's actually design space for how to construct token fungibility groups. I think stable swaps has been the primary one that we've been thinking about. But, Zaki proposed like other ones, such as like a lending based one. But yeah, basically, I think that's sort of going to be the solution. Some sort of stable swap system that the users shouldn't have to see and interact with, but is enabling the withdrawal experience in the back end.
Okay, thank you.
Daniel, I think maybe you'll be the last.
Hi. Daniel from the Netherlands here. You mentioned that the Grav token will be a one-to-one representation for an ERC20 equivalent. That reminds me a little bit of how banking started in the UK, where you could exchange your coins for an amount of gold that's in the bank, and you get a certificate in return. Are there any guarantees that relationship remains one-to-one, or is there a possibility that gets leveraged, much like gold was at the time for actual fiat?
Well, yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Son.
Well, I was just going to say, the guarantees are that this, relationship is encoded in a blockchain that anyone can see, and we can, unlike the bank, which no one has visibility into what what money it's issuing. Here, anyone can see the code and see that, hey, okay, this is only issuing at 1-to-1, and if anyone wanted to change that code, it would require getting all the validators to update, and anyone can see that that's happening. So that's sort of the difference with the banks. Justin, if you want to add anything.
Yeah, so this is of course a very interesting question. And currently Gravity Bridge is designed with a 1-to-1 holding, and I want to correct just a minute detail here, is that it's not Graviton. Well, Graviton could be a 1-to-1 ERC20, but any token that goes over the bridge, whether that be from Cosmos to Ethereum or from Ethereum to Cosmos, is a 1-to-1 representation of whichever is locked on the other side. So but that's just a detail. Getting back to the core of the question. Right now, all the code is based around 1-to-1 representations. If you were to try and change that, the chain would of course immediately halt because the invariant would check it right away. So this is something that could theoretically be changed by an update if the Gravity Bridge community chose to do that. But I believe that would sort of preclude a lot of people from using the bridge. But from a long-term perspective, from like the bridge designer in me is very excited to see somebody try this at some point, even though I don't believe it would end well. But it's nowhere in the plans of the Gravity Bridge community that I know of.
Thank you.
Sweet. I think. Wait, I think there's one. Nope. Okay. Cool.
Sonny, you're cutting out.
Yes. Cool. I think that's it for questions for today. I guess.
Sonny, if you can hear us, you're cutting out.
Oh, really? Hello. Test. 1, 2, 3.
He sounds fine to me, so I think it may just be Twitter Spaces, which has been just a barrel of laughs today.
That's horrible.
Cool. Okay, and then I guess Justin. So a couple questions I had for you was what would be also the timeline on things like we talked, like I mentioned earlier, like other types of interactions over Gravity Bridge, things like NFTs or interchain accounts. Yeah.
So I don't think interchain accounts will take too long to integrate. So it's really just a matter of putting it on the timeline and taking a couple of weeks for dev and an upgrade. So yeah, I mean, I think we could do that in less than a month. But something like NFTs is, so we are working on NFT support with Stargaze. And that brings up the question of what does it look like to bridge an NFT via IBC? And we're currently working our way through that discussion along with everybody else. So I'd say NFT support is 4 months away, probably a little bit more once we account for everything. And then support for other Ethereum chains is once again being we're sort of doing pathfinding for that right now. And I think it really depends on how many targets the community has, and whether or not we really want to go all in and do an unlimited number of EVM chains and just go for this sort of upgrade Gravity Bridge and suddenly start targeting 100 chains or more. Or if we want to do something a little bit more limited, because there's definitely some really high value chains that it's probably worth it to get to quicker. So that's really where the timeline is the most variable. I'd say we'll probably have at least an MVP of something out in the 6-month time range. We'll see.
Cool. And then I guess the other one was, what's the timeline to get some of the UI? So I think a couple of things that would be necessary for like integration into Osmosis would be withdrawals via the UI. And then also, direct deposits from, because I know some friends who are like trying to bridge over from Ethereum, and then they get stuck on Gravity Chain and they don't have any Grav tokens to pay fees. So I guess like having some sort of like the multi-hop thing would be the solution to that, or turn off fees like we do on Osmosis. So yeah,
Well, there currently aren't any fees on Gravity Chain, so they shouldn't be stuck.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know why they were stuck then. I'll let them know. But yeah, so what are some of the timelines there on some of those UX integrations?
Yeah, the UX integrations are our next target, and you know, I am really going for the end of the month here. We'll see how it all works out, but I think that's very achievable. Now, as for withdrawals, we actually need to get together and decide what sort of IBC message you're going to send us that will then trigger a withdrawal. Once that's decided, it's just a matter of putting it together, which I don't estimate will take very long.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I think that's it for today.
I was gonna.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna mention something. So for most of us, you know, in this conversation right now, we can understand what Sonny and Justin are speaking about. However, we have to remember that, you know, this is kind of like next level. So there's a few of us in the community that started up a Twitter space called IBC Gang Lounge, and actually, Sonny, you stopped by a few times already, and we're trying to have these Fridays and Saturdays. It would be 2 a.m. UTC, so you know I'm Standard Eastern time, so that'd be about 9 o'clock, and then Sundays we're doing around noon Eastern, so that'd be 17. And the information on there would be more curtailed for everyone. So I know if someone was new to crypto or IBC and they just listened to this conversation, they probably would be intimidated. So we always have to remember that we have to help out the people that don't understand what IBC is, what Justin's speaking about, Sonny, and that's what our prerogative is throughout those Twitter spaces. So please stop by, and if you have any questions. And it was great to see Friday night. We started out with just like 5 or 6 of us just bullshitting about random things, and the next thing you know, it went up to 250, which was very powerful and inspirational. That people like Sonny and everyone just care to spread the gospel, so to speak. So I just wanted to thank everyone and everyone in here for the opportunity.
Sweet. Thank you guys all for showing up, and yeah, we'll see you guys next week. Yeah. Thanks. Bye.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.